What's up guys, welcome back finally to another video. It's been a while, I know I've had a lot of school, but today I am going to talk about the US Senate elections again because it is only a week or so until election day. We need to cover this. A lot of things have changed since my last video on this topic, so I'm going to just jump straight into the video and start to deal with these US Senate races. Now, obviously many of these are safe. We are not expecting anything to happen that is a drastic change in North Dakota or South Dakota, Oklahoma, Kansas, Utah, Nevada is not there, and most of these states in the center of the country, including Missouri, including Iowa, even Alaska, where we know that there are two Republicans battling it out, and I think Murkowski is going to win, but she's probably going to still caucus with the GOP despite of that. And on the Democratic side, you have a couple of safe ones as well. Illinois, unfortunately, is safe. Shouldn't be. Republicans should have had a good candidate in Illinois, but they don't. Connecticut has actually moved into the likely column, but that is about it. Now, we get to the juicy stuff, because in RCP, they are taking the RCP average, the average of polls, and then they also have an adjusted poll average as of the date, where they compare with previous polling errors, which means they predict that Oz will win despite Fetterman being up in the polls, but it's more surprising the fact that they actually predict that Hassan is going to win despite Bullock being up in the adjusted polls. Masters is going to win despite Kelly's up being in both the adjusted polls and the RCP average, and that Laxalt is going to win despite polling historically overestimating the GOP in Nevada. Of course, that was mostly in 2018. In 2018, Republicans were mostly overestimated, Democrats underestimated, with exceptions like, for example, Florida and Ohio. But when we get to it, we are looking at a expanded map where states like New Hampshire are in play, and states like Washington and Colorado could be sleeper flips. I'm going to unfortunately start by categorizing both of them as likely Democratic, and that is by going Democratic by more than 5 points. I think that the polls have predicted that Colorado is probably going to Michael Bennet by between 6 and 7, and I think that is quite accurate. I think that in Washington we need an even bigger surge than what we've seen for Tiffany Smiler to have a realistic shot, and since there are no third-party candidates, I think that is a bonus for Patty Murray. I mean, she is the worst of the worst. She is the reason, the embodiment of the reason of why we need term limits, but she is probably going to win re-election because there are no far left or green third party that can steal votes from her with the system they have there. Now, there are some likely Republican states as well. I am tempted to put Florida in safe, but I'm going to do the less controversial and say it is likely, but so is Ohio, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. And that's because I do believe that they will all go Republican by more than 5 points, but less than 10. As you can see that they actually agree with me in the RCP aggregate prediction table. Now we come into the juicy stuff, and these are the 5 most competitive races. Now some of the predictors don't have New Hampshire here, instead they have Wisconsin, but I do think that Wisconsin is quite solid for the Republicans now. We know that Johnson is a known overperformer of the polls. If we look at the polls now, they have him up by almost 3 points in the RCP, and back in 2016 that gap was pretty much flipped. I mean, we can just take a sharp look at it. Lean D, everyone predicted Lean D. Most of these polls, almost all of them, had Russ Feingold defeating Johnson. And a few polls before election they had him defeating Feingold. But anyway, Johnson is going to win by a quite big margin. Now, the actually competitive ones are more interesting. Right now, I think that Dr. Oz is running away with it in Pennsylvania. We can take a sharp look at the polls here too. Most of them have Fetterman up, and of the few that are actually taken after or during the debate, there's like 2 of them here. They are all showing a Republican lean. However, some of these are from very unknown and unacknowledged polling sources, like Wiki Insight and Patriot Polling and Coefficient. However, Insider Advantage and Big Data Poll are different, and I believe that there will be more polls soon enough that will show us in the lead, probably from Trafalgar or Rasmussen. And yeah, so that one is leaning Democratic. The next one leaning Republican, of course. The next one I would like to cover is the state of Nevada. Now, Nevada is one I feel that Republicans should have run away with a while ago, but polling has actually started to tighten again, and as you see here in the polling aggregates, RCP is now the only one that has Laxalt up. You had this poll, University of Nevada, Reno, who had Catherine Cortez Masto up by 13. Now that poll you can honestly completely just forget about, but there are someone here who has not done that. So if you look at the actually credible polls, they have Laxalt up. Siena Research, New York Times, which in all of these other races are overestimating Democrats by a lot, are probably also overestimating them here, and they have a tie. So that's not going to happen. Laxalt is going to win, but I'm not confident it's going to be by that big of a margin. So we're going to put it as a lean for now. Now, Georgia is the one where you have a Herschel Walker against Raphael Warnock, and lately Walker has been surging. He has been surging. As I mentioned, Siena, New York Times, Democratic biased. Yes, it has Warnock up, but it is an outlier, and all the other recent polls have Walker up, because it is going to be about the party ticket, it's going to be about inflation. It's not going to be about issues like voter suppression, which of course is completely fabricated by the Democrats, and other issues like abortion, which has really decreased in relevance since June. And because of that, Walker is going to win, and right now it actually looks like he can avoid a runoff. I know there's a libertarian, but I think that now, the way it looks, he is going to avoid a runoff, which of course means he relies a lot on Kemp, on pulling him above the top, but there will still be a big ticket split there. I just don't think it is as big as the polls suggest. Then we go to the state of Arizona. Arizona is one of the more scary, interesting ones. You have Blake Masters as the Republican candidate. He is an intellectual, he's a genius, he is too smart for the voters of really whatever state he would be running in. And no poll has yet shown him ahead. However, Data for Progress had it as a tie. Now the latest poll have it really close. He is in the mid to high 40s, which is kind of good. As normally, Siena Research, New York Times are Democratic biased, and they have Kelly up by 6, but that is not going to happen, of course. Ohio Predictive Insights have Kelly up by 2, and that is significant, because if you go back, let's see, here at the beginning they had Kelly up by 9, and then they had Kelly up by 12 in one of these polls here, just below Kurt Jetta. And now only 2. And yes, I mean, Trafalgar, Rasmussen, they don't have him actually up. No polls have Masters up, but if you look at the aggregate, in RCP it is 1.5 in favor of Kelly. In 2020, it was in the RCP 5.7. 270 was closer, so we can say, alright, the average is 5.4, and Kelly won by 2.4, so Martha McSally overperformed the polls by 3 points. And yes, Trump pulled her up, but also Kari Lake is pulling Blake Masters up. Now, I personally think that Blake Masters is a much better candidate and politician than Kari Lake. No offense to her, it is just the entire reason she is doing so well in the polls is because she has a very weak candidate, but Mark Kelly is a much stronger candidate with a lot of name recognition. He is an astronaut. He has some popularity from there, so Blake Masters always had the bigger uphill climb, and he's an incumbent. Katie Hobbs is not an incumbent. Doug Ducey is, and most Arizona voters would like to keep the state in capable hands. So, in the end, the aggregate underestimates Masters by a lot, and I think it is going to be a Republican flip. And the last one now is New Hampshire. I've spent a lot of time on these toss-ups, and New Hampshire is the one most Democratic leaning. The polls here have showed it tightening. Bullock did not do as well in the debate as many other Republicans. He did not do as well as Masters or Oz or DeSantis or Johnson. He might even not do as well as his Democratic opponent, Maggie Hassan. But the polls have been tightening. And the fact that we have a tie, or polls that show him down by 1 or 2 now right before the election, it is really showing a danger signal for the Democrats. And if you look at the past elections in New Hampshire, polls usually underestimate Republicans, and here we have it at 4.6. Which is quite accurate, because in 2016 Clinton barely won New Hampshire by way less than a point. Biden won by 6 points or 6.5. So we know from history that this state underestimates Republicans by a lot. So yes, I actually think that Don Bullock is going to give the Republicans seat number 54, which means they will have a Romney-proof majority, a Susan Collins-proof majority, and even a Lisa Murkowski-proof majority if this happens. And yes, the wave is unknown, we don't know where it is going to take us, but right now I still believe that Bullock has the advantage, that Masters and Walker and all the others here have the advantage, and this is my current predictions, but we will see on election night if it bears reality. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Please like this video, and I'll see you next time.